Here at the All In podcast, we love talking about sports. That's pretty much our main topic. And in sports, you need to be reliable. Well, what's more reliable than Tavon's Lawn Care LLC? It's a Black-owned family business in York, PA. Tavon's Lawn Care, or TLC for short, since they provide each job with tender love and care, has been in business for over 10 years. Founded by owner Tavon Parker, TLC aims to provide employment for underprivileged youth while providing great service at a reasonable rate. You can visit TavonsLawnCareLLC.com or Tavon's Lawn Care on Facebook and Instagram to view their portfolio and request your cost-free quote now. So if you need any kind of lawn care or landscaping job, visit Tavon's Lawn Care for your landscaping needs.
Hey guys, welcome back to the All In podcast. This is episode 21 podcast. It's just me and Eli today. A little surprise. This is our first episode we've done just us. I think since the last time we talked about NBA, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, it's been a while. We've had some great guests on lately.
We have had some great guests on, but this is our podcast. So every once in a while, we do need to keep it just us. So how's it going today, man?
Going good, man. Episode 21, my high school number, so this should be good luck. Score 1,000 points. Score 1,000 points in that number. So
I was 21. I was 21 my junior year. I did not score 1,000 points in it, but so I was always 24, right? And then my freshman year, my sophomore year, I was 24, and then my junior year. Like, the way we picked jersey numbers was, like, seniors got to pick first. This senior just randomly was like, I'm going to take 24 this year. I was like, what the? So I took 21 for a year and then went back to 24 my senior year. But I was 21 for a year, yeah. So we are talking NBA today. A lot going on in the NBA with the COVID bubble. It's looking a little more shaky. We've got some more positive cases of coronavirus in the bubble. We're learning more about life in the bubble. And then we've also got some injuries to some key guys on some big-time contenders. So we want to get into all those topics today. We do want to talk about All In Network. We got some stuff going on. All In Politics. Their true debut is going to be this Friday. They did launch an episode with us, a joint episode. That's on our YouTube channel. Also, you can find it on their feed and our feed, All In Politics and All In Podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, really. Make sure you check them out if you're interested in politics at all. Those guys, very experienced in politics and very energetic. Just a couple cool guys. Nice to have a conversation with them and hang out for a while. What else we got going on, Eli?
So we have Real Deal Radio. Those of you who follow us on Twitter may have seen his preview this week. So that is also debuting Friday as well. So we got 2 debuts coming up Friday the 17th. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be tweeting that out on social media at All In or at all_in_pod on Twitter. And we're also on Instagram, All In Network, and Facebook, All In Network as well. So look out for us on those as well. Thank you to everybody who's been tuning in on YouTube. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you also just go in and download on Apple, Spotify as well. That way, the plays still count. So you watch on YouTube, download on Spotify. Make sure you guys leave ratings and likes and comments and stuff like that on YouTube videos. And don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, definitely hit that subscribe button. We've seen a nice uptick in our YouTube video count, so we love to see it, and we thank you guys for that. If you could do us a favor and hit subscribe, that would be awesome. We're expecting Cody to be on our show on Sunday, I believe, to kind of talk about his show. So look out for that as well. Also check out allinnetwork.net. You can find links for all of the podcasts on the network. All right, let's talk NBA basketball. A lot going on recently. NBA is slated for their return July 30th. It will be the first official games back. Lakers Clippers is going to be that night, so it's going to be a really exciting return. And then I think they've got some scrimmages lined up. I think starting maybe the 23rd. I don't know if those are going to be nationally televised or not, or maybe just regional. But they got some scrimmages lined up. So I mean, really, we're going to take anything we can get at this point. We're kind of thirsting for basketball. So, But it's not looking great right now. If you've been following the news at all, if you've been following Twitter at all, a couple more positive cases have rolled in. Russell Westbrook confirmed a positive test he had. James Harden, there's been reports that he had a positive test. He has not confirmed that yet. He did show up in Orlando, but, a little bit late. People are a little suspicious what's going on. We're hearing that he did have a positive test. And all of this at the same time where Florida is becoming kind of the hotbed for coronavirus with the way that they've handled it, and they're reopening. Disney World is reopening despite large increases in cases, and they're really spiking up. So, Eli, I will ask, what are the optimism levels? Are we going to see this? Is this actually going to happen? And if it does happen, is it going to finish?
So, is it going to happen? Yes. I think they're in too deep to just shut it all down now. I would say probably the only thing that would cause that would be like a few outbreaks actually inside the bubble. Just like 3 or 4 or 5 cases possibly showing up in the bubble. I would say that would probably cause them to shut down before the 31st. I don't foresee that happening, but it could. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But I'm less optimistic about this, like continuing and finishing, because, like you said, like Florida is a hotbed right now. And players who aren't at the bubble yet have been popping up with cases left and right. And honestly, you have to, and there's been multiple protocol breaches that have been confirmed. And there's also been a lot of activity on the hotline of people reporting protocol breaches. So, which we'll get into later, but it's just like, this seems like a disaster waiting to happen. And we even talked about it on the last show, like some IG model already said that a dude invited her down to the bubble. And of course she couldn't wait to run and tell social media about it. So I'm just okay, well, if that happened within like hours of this bubble, like starting, imagine what's happening with all the IG models who aren't snitching on Twitter. You know what I mean? It's just like,
facts.
It seems like a disaster waiting to happen. So my optimism level, I think, like out of on a 1 to 10 scale, of it finishing, I'm probably down to like a 5. Like I'm on the fence. Like they might finish it just to get it over with. Like honestly, even if cases start popping up, like, and what we're seeing though is the result of states putting, and the president putting profits over people. A lot of states opened up too soon, and this is the result. And if you look around the world, we're like the only ones who are still having like these rapid spikes. I would say, like for the most part of all the developed nations, like we're one of the few countries who's having a second outbreak. Really, right. Like it's strange to me, that every other soccer league except France's, who just shut theirs down when this all kind of happened. Every other major soccer league is finishing up play. They're not having massive outbreaks amongst their players. Then they're traveling. They're not even in a bubble. They're traveling and they're just playing without fans. And we can't even figure out the bubble situation for our sports. So like, what does that mean for all the other sports that are happening right now as well? It's just, it's getting to the point where like a full scale lockdown might have to come back again in August. I would say. Just a moment while this device reconnects. Sorry, Alexa felt like chiming in. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's just like, where does it stop? And I think it's going to come to the point where like, because Tom Wolf has already put COVID restrictions, at least in PA, back up. And I don't know, and he's been super proactive about it. So I don't know if other governors will end up doing it, but like if it gets bad enough, I feel like they have to, right? Some of them have souls, right? Like, so I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see, but it's not looking good, man.
Now, and we are, so I'm in Ohio, obviously. We're kind of following suit there. Like, we live in kind of Akron, Cleveland area here. Like, we're back up to like required face masks. Things are closing back down, and we've had this huge spike. And you mentioned the other countries in the world. It's kind of like a big damnation on our government and our leader and all of our governors, right? Like that we couldn't figure this out, and it seems like everyone else has, at least to some degree. And even like Germany, and even these countries who have, quote unquote, figured it out, they're still having some cases, very few. I mean, especially in comparison to the amount of new cases we're having, and they're still taking their precautions. Like Germany is close to, I think they're, maybe 100 new cases, 150 new cases a day for that country, and they're still pretty much on lockdown. So the way that Hillary Clinton put out a funny video on Twitter, and she's kind of poking fun about how countries led by women are, for some reason, handling it so much better. So maybe a little trolling by her, but it's shocking. And Florida is the hotbed right now. You look at the cases, it's insane. I would be very worrisome if I were a player, and it's tough for a player to go down there and that this is happening in the state, and they're already breaking protocol. Like who was it? Rashawn Holmes from the Kings, who crossed lines to go get delivery food or pick up something to eat. Like, come on, man. Like, you just got there. Like, they're going to be there for 3 months. They're going to have to figure this out and be able to do it within protocols. Now, I will say MLS is also having their bubble kind of close to the same area in Florida there. And they had a lot of problems getting started. So whenever teams were first coming down, there was a lot of cases. Certain teams had to drop out completely. But it seems like now that everyone's in the bubble, I think the latest round they did, they had no new cases in the bubble. So maybe that's a little bit promising. And once everybody's in the bubble for an amount of time and there isn't these protocol breaches, which there very well might be, maybe we can get a grip on this and it won't be as bad as what it's looking like it might be right now. And maybe the NBA says, you know what, this is getting out of control. We got to do 3-game series in the first round. We got to get 8 of these teams, like, you got to go back. Like, we got to get you out of the bubble. And honestly, I mean, them bringing 22 teams was a stretch anyway. They really could have cut this. They really could have had 12 teams or maybe 14 teams. Like, you didn't need all these teams, but, and I think you caught – well, they're trying to make it as fair as possible, and they're trying to get Zion in the play. They want that Zion-LeBron first-round matchup really bad, right? And if you bring the Pelicans, you have to bring the Spurs and the Suns and all the teams that were just as close. Yeah. So it's scary right now. And as big basketball fans as we are, like, we're hoping and praying that they can figure this out and have a full playoffs, and there won't be an asterisk and it won't be shortened. But I'm getting more worrisome by the day. So let's play a game then. So there's been a lot of protocol hotline calls. People apparently breaking protocol. I don't know if that's, the one guy went out and got food. People maybe inviting people over, like we've heard. Maybe they're having excessive meetups with more than the allotted amount of people that they're supposed to be. So I'll ask you this. D'Angelo Russell is not at the bubble. Okay, so we know he's not the snitch, even though he's notorious. Who's the snitch, you think?
I don't know, man. Honestly, it's gonna come from one of the lower seeds, I think. Or actually, no, it might come from one of the higher seeds, depending on who's getting reported. Like someone reported Jimmy Butler, and I guess they sent like security out to his room because he was working out too loudly. Like, come on, man. He was
dribbling the ball.
Yeah, or something like that. Like they said he was working out too loudly or something like that. Like, come on, you're a hater. Like, come on, there's no other there's no other way. Like, you didn't think anything was wrong with him. You just wanted to stop a man shine. But no, I mean the snitching, honestly, I think player most likely to snitch. I'm trying to think of who's there.
I think it's Chris. It's got to be Chris Paul, right?
Chris Paul. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got a history. He's got a track record.
Chris Paul definitely is calling up and snitching. He's also the president of the Players Association, so maybe he feels the need to. But definitely, Chris Paul got snitch written all over him. I mean, he's a double agent technically with State Farm. So
true, he
definitely
is.
know he's snitching,
and he's notorious for snitching to the refs. And I remember the tucked in jersey incident. And maybe it's like.
Open slightly, and you want him to make this free throw. Well, Minnesota just got dinged for a delay of game.
Maybe it's LeBron. Maybe LeBron is like, hey, we got to finish it. Because And they talk about the players who were like most adamant about we got to do this, we got to finish. LeBron and Chris Paul were the top two, really pushing for it. And LeBron's not a leader in the Players Association, but of course he has a lot of sway, a lot of pull.
Yeah.
So maybe he's making calls. Maybe he's saying, "Come on, guys, I need my fourth chip. Don't mess this up for me."
Yeah. So if you're a backup on your team, would you snitch on a teammate to get a spot?
Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah! I need those minutes. Well, I guess it depends. If I'm on the Lakers, the Bucks, or the Clippers, maybe not. If I'm on if I'm on the Magic, right? If I'm maybe like fringe starter, right? And or even say like I'm Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier is messing around. Nah, I'm calling. I need those shots. Evan Fournier is throwing up. I need 20 attempts a game, not 15.
Get him out of there. Snitching immediately.
So, I mean, plus, hey, I bet some players are legitimately worried. They might legitimately be like, hey, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. You're going to get us sick.
To be honest, I can't really it's a dilemma for me personally on whether or not, if I knew someone was breaking protocol, would I snitch? Is a dilemma to me, because on one hand, like, I definitely don't want to get COVID because I wanted down there to hoop. So I want to hoop. I opted in to hoop. And if you're doing something wrong that could possibly get me COVID, then, you know what I mean? Something needs to be done about it. You shouldn't be able to get away with things that I can't get away with. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
So, but I'm also anti-snitching. So it's a dilemma, and I can see where players might have an issue. I don't know about with it necessarily, but where players might not report as much as they should. But it seems like the hotline is working. They said there's been a lot of calls about it. But let's talk about Rudy Gobert.
A lot of hotline.
So, and one thing, and I think someone who couldn't possibly hurt his image any worse is Rudy Gobert, right? You would think, after what he did when this whole thing started, right? When he touched all the mics in the press conference and then got COVID and got the whole league shut down. And then he tweets like that the hotline is petty. And I'm like, dude, like, you of all people need to just lay low and not say anything. Don't criticize anyone or anything, especially when it comes to COVID-related topics. Like, you need to not say anything right now, because a lot of this is, well, it's not really his fault. But, like, you know what I mean? You pretty much ruined a relationship with a teammate in Donovan Mitchell because of your actions. You were not responsible, and you took this thing as a joke before, and now you're like talking about the hotline's petty. Like, you of all people should probably be snitching the most. You should be telling because you need to get yourself off of the hot seat. You need someone else to be, oh, hey, so and so got COVID, he broke the bubble. It wasn't me. You know what I mean? It was that take all the attention off of you. You need to be pro snitching right now. So that might be the guy, but he's talking about it's petty, and I'm just like, dude, that's really not a good look for you. I'm not going to look too much into it, but I'm like, that's really not a good look for someone who started this whole thing in the NBA as far as like cases popping up amongst players.
Yeah, but like, if I'm at the supermarket or whatever, and like if I'm in line, I'm wearing my mask, and Karen walks up behind me, no mask on, she's up on my butt 2 feet away, like, I'm gonna say something to Karen. Like, I'm not gonna call the hotline, but I'm gonna say something. So maybe you say something instead of calling the hotline.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would do. I would probably say, yo, like, come on, man. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're putting us in jeopardy. You're putting player safety in jeopardy, and you're putting the finishing of the league in jeopardy. So, and honestly, when you're coming to the bubble, you know what you're signing up for. Like, they made it abundantly clear. So, like, if you weren't going to abide by that, you really should have and if you didn't want to abide by those rules, you should have just stayed home. So, you know what I mean? I would certainly have a man-to-man talk, especially if it was a teammate. Yeah. But even if it was someone from another team, I'd be like, yo, like, come on, man, be responsible.
Right. I mean, the guys know each other. I think the guys know, most of them know each other well enough. Even if they're not on the same team, you would think that they could work it out. But I mean, like, if it's like egregious,
yeah,
right? Like, if I mean, I don't
You
even
brought
know,
it.
but like
You brought a girl in.
You brought a girl. That's what I was
going to
say.
calling a hotline immediately.
Yeah,
if I can't bring no girl,
like,
you can't.
Hey,
bring
right, facts. That's what I was about to say. Exactly. There's no way. This ain't a one-way street. Like, if you're getting booty, I need. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so. Yeah, I think I would.
Like a canary.
Yeah, I'd definitely call a hotline. So, all right, then let's talk about So Russell Westbrook tested positive. So let's talk about that. Then that kind of hurts the Rockets here, and it looks like Harden might have tested positive. So they're probably going to be recovered by the time games start. Now, teams are worried about people recovering from COVID and then still testing positive afterwards. Maybe they have concern about some false positives. I don't know if that's quite the right way to put it, or if it's more so that, it's still in their system, but they don't have the symptoms anymore, or, can they still spread it to other people? That'd be the big question. How concerned are you if you're a Rockets fan with this news?
I'd be very concerned because depth is already one of their biggest issues with the way that this roster is constructed. Yeah. So, and the Rockets aren't in a safe place in that sixth spot. They can't fall out of the playoff picture, but they certainly could drop to the 7 seed and end up with the Clippers in the first round instead of Denver, who would be a much more favorable matchup. And they really even have the ability to play their way all the way up to the 3rd seed. Like, the Denver isn't locked into that by any means. So, and obviously a higher seeding would draw a favorable matchup for them. So there is something to play for in this 8-game stretch where we don't really know, even if Russell Westbrook has recovered, like, technically from testing positive, like, this has long-term, this illness has long-term impacts on your lung capacity. So, like, how many minutes can he play after he gets back? You know what I mean? Because they said he's had mild symptoms. So, who knows what that means when he actually no longer actually has COVID, but what kind of ramifications there's going to be to, his lung capacity. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is, even if he does come back, it's going to be like barely in time probably for games to start. He's not going to get the same, like, guys are working out and stuff like that right now and having practices. He doesn't get that time with his teammates, which I don't know that the Rockets necessarily need because of their play style. But, it's a factor for sure. He doesn't get as many shots up as the next guy. So I think that's important. Not that, and to be honest, I don't think that they really have a championship, a realistic shot at a championship anyway, but it certainly hurts it, and then, like you said, if he comes back and there's like false positives and he's out longer, they could be looking at a first round exit depending on how this situation plays out. So that would be interesting to me to see how it plays out for the Rockets.
Yeah. And, the Rockets, I guess the story is they went small ball, PJ Tucker starting at the 5, and like started really well, right? I think they went like 10-2 out of the gate with that type of a lineup. And then I think they lost 4 in a row. Like, I think they got their ass kicked by the Knicks. They got their ass kicked by the Clippers. So if they do fall to that 7 seed, that's who they match up with in the first round. I don't think that's a really good matchup for them, the way they play, like against all those defenders. And then if someone is missing, it's just, I don't know how that works out. And so, I'd be interested to see if Russ misses any games there, or even, even in those first 8 games, like, those are actually really important for seeding in the matchups. Now there's no like home court advantage, so it won't matter so much there. But, if I'm Houston, I don't know if I am playing hard. And like, people say, like, okay, he had mild symptoms, or like, we really don't know what that means. Mild symptoms could be basically no symptoms. Mild symptoms could be flu-like symptoms. Now it sounds like he's not like hospitalized symptoms. And all of these guys who are, getting coronavirus down in this bubble, I don't think any of them have had that serious. I mean, they're all young, super healthy guys. Like, they're probably not going to have now they certainly could with this virus, and we don't know a ton about it, but it seems like from the trends that they probably won't be in that situation where it's very, very bad. Right. But it certainly could have long-term effects, and we just don't know. It is a novel virus. We don't know the long-term effects Now, we'll ask you this. What's your take on – so, like, I know, like, when Ezekiel Elliott tested positive and people reported it, he was like, oh, that's a HIPAA violation. Is that a HIPAA violation? I mean, we report whenever they have, like, torn ACLs. Isn't that kind of – I mean, even – is that the same thing or is that different? Because, like, it's so bad, I guess.
When it comes to the media, it's the same thing. Like,
right.
They like how much they care. It's the same thing. But even, I mean, technically, when they report that kind of stuff, those technically is a HIPAA violation. Even when they report the surgeries and stuff like that, those kind of things are all HIPAA violations technically.
Yeah.
Does anyone care enough to get sued over it? Maybe Ezekiel Elliott. But other than that, I don't think it's going to stop media members from reporting it unless they get sued over it, which actually it's not even them that you would sue. It would be the doctor.
The team who released it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the leak. No one even knows where the leak comes from. That's why it makes it so difficult is because no one's ever going to give up their source because they want to go back to that source for more information. So that's what makes it so difficult. But I mean, technically, yeah, it's a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's that much different. Even when guys have flu-like symptoms, they release that information. That's a sickness. Right. But honestly, I think the coronavirus one, the reason Ezekiel Elliott, I think, was so pissed about it. I think they kind of are embarrassed, right? Because
that party,
they had that party, right? He was embarrassed. He's like, yeah, I know, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I got caught. Now I got the thing. Now everybody knows that. This happened. But really, I think actually it's probably better. It's probably more beneficial for the public to know that you got coronavirus because you went to this party, and then they can maybe avoid going. That's kind of the Harden situation too. He was seen at pool parties in Arizona, and he was seen playing pickup in gyms, and obviously he has a small strip club affiliation thing that people know about him that he does very often.
Yep.
I think maybe it's more embarrassment than actually pissed about a HIPAA violation, right?
Yeah.
All right, so then let's other big news coming out of the bubble, not really COVID related. Rajon Rondo looks like he's going to be out for the playoffs. How big of a loss is this for the Lakers? Already going to be missing Avery Bradley, who chose to sit out. They did sign J.R. Smith. I'm not sure how high you are on him. Dion Waiters is going to be there. What's your thoughts on the Lakers? Is this a big loss or maybe not so big of a deal?
I think Avery Bradley's a bigger loss than Rondo, but I mean, Rondo's certainly an impactful player for them. I think they can live without him, to be honest, simply because he's not necessarily the player that they need in order to win a championship. I would say he would be a good contributor. You always want someone who has the skill set he has, who competes on defense, even if he's not the same defender he used to be. He's going to compete on the defensive end, good passer, high IQ. So you can always use those kind of guys on your team, but it doesn't break them. I like the J.R. Smith signing. I don't love J.R. Smith, but in a specific role, J.R. Smith is fine. He's another guy who'll compete on the defensive end. He'll space the floor and knock down open shots for the most part. He's a little streaky, but for the most part, he gives you some added shooting and helps you there. I think Dion Waiters will be interesting because we never really got to see Dion Waiters and what he'll bring. He's the one guy where it's he's a scoring creator, you know what I mean, that you can bring off your bench, which I don't know that they really had before. You know what I mean? Someone who could put the ball on the floor and make things happen, and also knock down, perimeter shots. Rondo was kind of a playmaking facilitator, whereas Dion Waiters gives you kind of a scoring facilitator. But I'm really interested to see. I think the biggest thing that we'll learn from, the Rondo injury is what Caruso's really made of.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really high on him, and it's because you see him in spot minutes, right? So you see him, getting a couple minutes here and there, and his energy sticks out. And obviously he's a white guy who can jump, so that gives him all the credibility in the world. But now he's going to be playing extended minutes. So more of his flaws will be exposed.
Yeah.
And more of his strengths will show. So
could be.
I want to see if he like takes the role of one of their like top perimeter defenders. I think maybe that could be something they look for in him. I don't know if he's capable of doing that, and he certainly won't be able to do it to an Avery Bradley extent. But if he can like give them some kind of a Dellavedova kind of defensive presence, something like that, where he's just kind of an irritant, that could help. You know what I mean? And replace an Avery Bradley's the loss that you have there. And then can he make spot up open shots? Because that's the big thing, right? When you're playing with LeBron James and even Anthony Davis in the playoffs, you're going to have to be able to knock down spot up threes consistently. So will he be able to do that? Is what we'll find out here with his added playing time. And I'm a little bit excited about that. I want to know more about Alex Caruso. Yeah,
probably a sentence you probably never thought you'd say when he was coming out of Texas A&M. But you know what? Like, I guess the big question, I don't know. I don't think Rondo's great anymore. He certainly, in the regular season, the last 2 seasons, has been more of a liability than a positive for them. But in the playoffs, he has a reputation of being a guy who shows up in the playoffs, and he has a lot of experience. I think he still has the ability to be a good defender, maybe in the playoffs, high-pressure situations. He's a guy you want on your team. And, now you look at this, Bradley's gone and Rondo's gone. Who is the ball handler on this team besides LeBron James? I mean, because even with, talk about Dion Waiters, he's not really a primary ball handler. I mean, he's a guy who, if you get him the ball, maybe in a half-court set, can go get you a bucket. But he's not someone who you would want bringing the ball up by any means.
Initiating your offense.
Exactly. And, when LeBron is out of the game here, Rondo and Anthony Davis, they do have kind of a nice connection there. Even going back to their New Orleans days, they were playing really well together. So I do wonder how that works. Now it seems like the Lakers, now they're going to be pretty reliant on J.R. Smith and possibly Dion Waiters, maybe Dion to a lesser extent. But I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I'm a Laker fan and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like, okay, like who – so we got LeBron and AD, and then these are the next guys on the list that we're going to rely on. And the next guys to hit those open shots are, one, Danny Green. I like that. But then you have Dion and J.R. Smith. Like, that's a little bit shaky. You want them to be in high-pressure situations. We know J.R. Smith's reputation in high-pressure, high basketball IQ situations. It's not always been the best. Dion Waiters, he kind of a similar story. Maybe not to the same extent as JR, but you never know. He could pop a couple of weed edibles and go no come on the plane again. So we don't know what's gonna happen with Dion Waiters. It could be an up and down ride.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I might be a little bit worried if I'm the Lakers, and just in terms of creation and when LeBron's not in the game, and not to mention the fact that LeBron is a different breed than every other human who's probably ever lived, maybe besides like Bo Jackson or maybe a handful of others. Right. But 35 years old, right? Like at some point, maybe he's 34, turning 35 in December. But at some point, like I don't know if I want him playing over 40 minutes a game in the playoffs. Now he's had a big break here, but like I can't imagine he's going to be playing much less than that with the ball handling needs that they have going into this playoffs. And a lot of them are going to be high pressure situation against some really good defenders. So I think I am kind of getting a little bit worried about the Lakers.
Yeah.
All right, last thing we're going to talk about today then. Also, Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers, they're one of the big question marks, possibly a contender this year. If you look at their home record this year, they're definitely looking like they're going to be a contender. If you look at their away record, they're looking like they're definitely going to get swept in the first round. So Ben Simmons is always a big topic of conversation, his ability to shoot, whether or not he's a true point guard. Now, all reports out of these Philly practices that he's playing power forward. And I think Shake Milton it looks like he's going to be the starting point guard, it looks like. So Philly's your team. How do you like that power forward move for Simmons?
I'm a fan of it. For them, and the biggest reason is because Shake Milton adds shooting to that lineup. And I didn't love the fit with Horford, Simmons, and Embiid on the floor at the same time. So it adds floor spacing, first of all. And I think it's going to get Ben Simmons off the ball more. And I think like one of his biggest problems is when he's in like full point guard mode is he gets complacent as far as pushing tempo, and he gets to that point where like he brings the ball down the floor and it's like straight into a dribble handoff. And I'm like, okay, do we really need that every possession that you bring the ball up the floor? You know what I mean? Like, and maybe if it's to like open up a shooter, fine. But we don't need that every possession. That frustrates me from when he's playing the point guard spot. But I think if he's bringing it up occasionally, so maybe he gets a rebound and he's pushing, and I think that's going to force him to push the ball in transition more when he gets rebounds, or when he even if he does get an outlet, he's going to be forced to push it in transition more because the ball's not in his hands as much. So I think that will force him to actually be more aggressive. It sounds weird to say that, but like without the ball in his hands all the time, now when it's in his hands, he'll have to be more aggressive in trying to get to the basket because his opportunities are less. So I think that helps. I think it actually helps when he does these dribble handoffs too, because now probably your dribble handoffs are probably for a shooter. And Ben Simmons, now that we're another guard's on the floor, Ben Simmons is likely drawing a bigger defender on him, because now your guards have to probably match up with Shake and Josh and Tobias. You don't really want a big guy in Tobias Harris. So you may see more big guys guarding Ben Simmons, where he can now, when he's in those dribble handoffs or dribble into a ball screen type situations, his man isn't able to switch as much as if a guard, or shooting guard or small forward is guarding Ben Simmons.
Right.
So I think it creates advantages there. The biggest thing, however, and it's regardless of what position Ben Simmons plays, the thing they're going to have to figure out is when crunch time comes, and they're obviously they like to play through Embiid. How do you play through Embiid? Because if you're putting him on the post, then low block situations, Ben Simmons' man is doubling. So how are you handling that? Where is he on the floor? Is he diving to the rim? Or is he finally going to space the floor and shoot jump shots? You know what I mean? That's what Brad Brown, I think, needs to figure out. Which I'm not convinced that he's going to shoot jump shots yet. So my thing is, like, can you put him at like elbow extended before Embiid catches, and then Embiid catches, double comes, he dives and forces the defense to collapse, and maybe his kick out goes somewhere else. I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe that's something that the Sixers look at now that he's off the ball, and, things like that. So, I think that's the biggest thing that they'll still have to figure out regardless of what position he plays. But I like it. I think it may force him into like a Draymond Green type role where, Draymond's shooting doesn't impact his team as badly as Ben Simmons does because the ball's not in his hands as much. Yeah. So like maybe he'll be like a better offensive version of Draymond Green, in this kind of role. So, we'll see how that works out for them. But I do like it. I prefer a smaller lineup if you're going to have Simmons and Embiid on the floor at the same time.
Yeah, and Simmons is so good in transition. It's like you can't just give up on him because the things he can do creating and in transition and finishing at the hoop is really, really impressive. It's just like the half court sets. Like I just don't know where he fits on the floor. Like this was so even like coming into this season, I was low on the Sixers. There's a lot of hype when they signed Al Horford and stuff. Like I was low on the Sixers, and I still am low on the Sixers because I just don't know how it works in crunch time. Like the spacing is just not there. And like, I guess the option is like, okay, well, we're going to take Al Horford, who we just signed for a ton of money, off the floor. And now it's like, well, what do we do with Ben Simmons? Like even with Ben Simmons and Embiid, like where do you put these guys so it works? And if there is somewhere where you can put them and it works, which there might be, I think you can figure something out. I don't know if Brett Brown is the guy to figure that out. Clearly, He hasn't been in the past couple of years. I mean, last year when you looked at him in the playoffs, it was like most of the time in the last 5 minutes of games, it was Jimmy Butler's got the ball, get out of the way. Let's try to work with this. Okay, so now if Embiid's the guy in the post, which I think that's probably their best option is Embiid. If you're in a half-court set and it's slowed down, Embiid, maybe he's your guy. Hopefully you can kick it out to some shooters. Ben Simmons is not that shooter. So maybe he's the cutter. Maybe, that they find a way to make that work. You just don't want to clog Embiid's space. That becomes a big issue for them in the playoffs. And that's if I'm a Sixers fan, which I'm not, but you are. That's what I'm most worried about. And if it comes down to it, it's like, well, do I take Simmons off the floor in the last 2 minutes of games? Well, I don't want to do that because he's my best on-ball defender.
Yeah.
Who's going to guard the other team's best player? You lost Jimmy Butler. It's going to be Ben Simmons. So that's a serious dilemma. And Brett Brown, I think, is not the guy to solve it, unfortunately. I do like the Sixers. I think that they have a good chance to beat Boston because of the Embiid matchup. So today they released a video of Ben Simmons shooting some threes. How excited are you about that?
I'm not buying it one bit. I'm sick of Ben Simmons building us up to tear us right back down, shooting the three in a preseason. That was when because he had the whole summer of these like videos and pickup games of him shooting. Then he came out in the preseason. He finally shot one after Embiid like begged him to against a trash team, and he hit it. And that's my biggest problem. Is like I really believe that if Ben Simmons took like three threes a game, I think he would shoot like 30%, which granted is not good, but God, it's better than zero, man. Like
that's what Giannis shoots.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and at the end of the day, if I shoot 30%, I at least have to like be close to you. You know what I mean? Like if I'm a defender, I have to at least respect the fact that you might hit one. And then if you get hot, and hit two, then I got to step up more. You know what I mean? And that's why even if you don't hit them, you at least have to be a threat to shoot it so that defenders don't just sit back at the circle on you like teams have done. And to me, I'm just like, I don't know anyone who plays basketball, especially at the level that he does. But even in my entire career, I've never seen anyone have someone guard them back in the circle and they still don't shoot a jump shot. Like I'll miss 10 straight jump shots before I just let you guard me back there for an entire game. I'll miss every time. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing. I don't understand how Ben Simmons doesn't have that mentality to at least dribble up to the freaking foul line and shoot the ball. Right. But it's just like, I'm not buying anything Ben Simmons sells on social media as far as shooting goes. I'm looking for him to do it in a game. Start with taking one a game, then go ahead and take two, then take three, you know what I mean? And then then build it from there. But you're never going to get better at it if you don't do it in the games. You can shoot all the threes you want in an open gym by yourself with no one guarding you. You're never going to get good at shooting in-game threes if you don't shoot them in games.
Yeah, my thing is like, why are you doing it? Like, why are you practicing? Why are you putting these videos out? Like, if you're not going to shoot it, don't practice it. Practice your dunks and your practice a freaking floater.
Free throws.
Or a free throw. Like, do something that you're actually going to use. Like, don't waste all this time shooting threes if you're not going to shoot any. Maybe he's working on them because he honestly doesn't think he's good enough to shoot them in a game yet. But I think he is. I think he could shoot 28, maybe 20, 25. I think he could shoot 25 to 30% from three if he shot 3 or 4 a game. I don't see what's stopping him. And Embiid needs him to shoot threes. The reason this partnership isn't working as people play is because he refuses to shoot threes. It's so hard for Embiid to get that post work when teams are sagging so far off of Ben. And even if you can't shoot the three, like if you can hit a mid-range from one dribble in, I know it's not a great analytical shot, people would say, but you got to do something. You got to
better than what he's doing.
You got to be able to shoot a jump shot if you want to be in the NBA. Even if you're a center, you have to be able to shoot a jump shot. And even like I think the closest comparison would be like Rondo. When it seemed like teams figured him out a little bit, they started to sag off, and that's when you saw his career, kind of take a downward slant from where he was in Boston. But he at least figured out a way to facilitate from there, and he would at least shoot it when they sagged off him, even if he missed. and he would shoot 25% from three, but he would at least shoot it, and he'd make one. And even if you make 1 out of 5, at least the guy who's guarding you is going to say, well, he might shoot it. At least he might shoot it. Let me at least get close enough that I can box him out if he does. Like, if you're not shooting at all, it's, and whatever. So I get frustrated watching Ben Simmons as someone who's not even a Sixers fan.
God, please don't even get me started. But and Rondo is a great point, because Rondo has obviously, he's had that. I think that's probably one of the first people we saw like super sag off of someone like in the modern NBA. But remember that game Rondo hit like a bunch of threes against the Heat in the playoffs?
Yep.
When LeBron and them were there, and he had like 44 and almost won them in overtime. I don't remember if they won that game or not, but I remember Rondo hit like 4 or 5 threes. And I'm just like, here's the thing. Like, Rondo knows he's not a good shooter, but he'll at least shoot it enough times to where you have to respect me. You know what I mean? Because now if I do hit, I really only have to hit 1 to get you to come closer. And then if I hit 2 with someone who's with Ben Simmons' ability to get to the basket, he hit 2 threes in any game. You have serious problems, because now you're like, okay, he's in a rhythm, and I actually have to contest because he's now hit 2 shots. You know what I mean? And or you got to live with him hitting 4 or 5. And if Ben Simmons, any game that Ben Simmons hits 4 or 5 threes against you, you're losing. I know that's his dream, but like, you know what I mean? That's what kind of people, the approach teams took to LeBron, right? You're like, okay, they didn't sag off him as far, but like teams are like, okay, well, we'll make him hit like 2. But if LeBron hit 5 or 6, or hit 4 or 5 on you, you lost that game every single time. But at least LeBron, the way LeBron got better to the point where like teams contest LeBron on pretty much every shot, he shot them in games. He shot awfully early in his career. He went through the 22 to 25% in his career, but he kept shooting them. And then it all clicked when in the Spurs series, Game 7, he made every fucking jump shot he could. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's truly the only way. You can show us these videos and show us the work you're putting in as much as you want. Yeah. But the only way you're truly going to get better is if you shoot the shots in the game.
Yeah. And guess what? Like, okay, so if I'm Brett Brown, I go to Ben Simmons. I'm like, hey, listen, man, we're going to have 100% possessions in this game. We can afford you missing 3 or 4 threes. It's okay. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, go ahead, man. Like, knock yourself out. Like, we'll live with 3 or 4 missed threes. If you make 1 or 2, great. That's an added bonus. But it's okay. Yeah. Like,
that's what I don't understand. It's like in today's NBA, and analytics show it. It's like it's almost better for you to miss 3 threes a game than it is for you to not shoot it at all. I'd rather you miss 5. I'd rather you miss 5 threes every game, and we just miss out on points every possession. Maybe you get them all out in the first half, empty the clip out in the first half, and if one goes down, keep shooting it in the second half. If nothing goes down, maybe you reevaluate. But like, it's much better for him to shoot them and miss them than it is for him to not shoot them at all.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the worst? What's the worst he could do? If he, I don't think there's any way he'd be less than like 20%, right? Is that the worst he could do?
He's not that awful of a shooter.
He's not that awful.
He doesn't shoot like Shaq,
right. So I mean, if you're just playing the numbers game and he's 1 for 5, okay, well, you have 3 points on 5 possessions. Okay, if I make 2 twos on 5 possessions, that's 40%, which is probably close to where he would be. But that's only 1 more point. Like, just shoot the threes. It's okay. Right. Just a couple of them. So yeah, that's frustrating. So you flip flop then on Philly. I'll ask you again. Then the first time we did this, you had them over the Celtics. The next time you had the Celtics over the Sixers. So now that we have this news of him playing power forward, possibly shooting threes, are you going back to the Sixers?
Not yet.
No,
not yet. We'll see. I'm gonna stick with the Celtics. I think they just look better in the regular season, and to coin your phrase, that means something. So
yeah. Thank you.
I think that means something. So I'm going to stick with the Celtics, and I don't really want to reevaluate any of my picks until after the 8 games when we get an official bracket. That's when I'm going to start reevaluating.
Okay,
I'm going to die on the hill of my previous bracket that we did until that.
Thanks. Me too. So, anything else today?
That's all I got, man.
Okay, so that's pretty much all we got today, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the All In podcast. Make sure you're checking out our website, allinnetwork.net, where you can find links to all of our podcasts on the network, ourselves, the Rain and Bliss podcast, which if you haven't tuned into Rain and Bliss, the newest episode, they talked about the entanglement with Will and Jada and August. So definitely want to tune into that. They also talked about plastic surgery, a lot of topics. Real Deal Radio with Cody Deal, that's coming on Friday. All In Politics is also debuting on Friday. They already have an episode up with me and Eli. So if you like me and Eli's voices, you can hear us there as well. We're also going to do some collabs with them going forward and our podcast as well. So things are happening at the All In Network. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Make sure you go to our Teespring store, grab some All In merch. The most recent round actually helped us get some new cameras, so our video quality should be going up here soon in the future episodes. So again, thank you guys for all your support so far. And then don't forget to subscribe again to the YouTube channel. But again, thank you guys for everything. Oh, and on Anchor, you can now support the podcast with monthly donations. You could do 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. We are still running a raffle currently that where if you make a donation, post a screenshot either on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, send it to us however you can. And then we'll enter you into a drawing to win a free item from our store that isn't the hoodie or the blanket. So, and also a chance to come on and have a segment where you get to ask us some questions or chop it up with us. So, good opportunity to get some exposure on the All In pod. So, excellent opportunity. So, go ahead and hit that support button at Anchor on our Anchor page to help out the podcast.
Yeah, so I'll put the link to the Anchor page in the description of this video, guys. So make sure you are going to that. I think it's anchor.fm/all-in-network. And then there's a support button right there where you can enter that raffle. And if you win, you'll get to come on the show with us and talk about whatever you want. So that sounds like a lot of fun. So, all right, guys, that's all we got. Episode 21, All In Podcast. Thanks for listening, guys.
See you guys.